They say the river never says no to the rocks in its path, but they are wrong. The river says no 1,000 times a day just so it can say yes to the ocean. We live in a world that demands our yeses. Yes to the notification, yes to the distraction, yes to the person who doesn't value our time, and yes to the fear that tells us we must do everything at once. We are drowning, not because the water is deep, but because we have forgotten how to flow. High in the cragged peaks of the Iron Mountains, where the air is thin enough to make a man's heart race and the silence is loud enough to make a man think, lived an old man named Elian. He was a hermit, but the village below called him the master of the single thread. People would trek for 3 days through the snow just to ask him one question: how do I find peace when the world is screaming? One morning, a young man named Kael reached the hermit's hut. Kael was successful by every metric of the valley. He had gold, he had land, and he had a reputation, but his eyes were bloodshot, and his hands trembled like a leaf in a storm. He sat across from Elian, who was staring at a small, steady stream that trickled from a rock face into a stone basin. Kael began to speak, his words tumbling out like a landslide. He talked about his business, the demands of his family, the projects he wanted to start, the books he wanted to read, and the constant gnawing feeling that he was failing at all of them. He felt like he was being pulled apart by 4 horses running in different directions. He asked Elian for a ritual, a prayer, or perhaps an herb to calm his racing mind. Elian did not look up. He simply pointed to the stone basin. It was overflowing. The water was hitting the basin with such force, and from so many different splashes of rain and runoff, the silt at the bottom had been stirred up. The water was gray, murky, and useless. "I can't see the bottom," Kael whispered. "That is your life," Elian said, his voice like the grinding of ancient stones. "You think you are living because you are full, but you are only muddy. You have said yes to every drop of rain, and now you have lost the spring." The old man stood up and led Kael down a treacherous path to the edge of a great, roaring river. The sound was deafening. The water didn't just move, it commanded the earth to move out of its way. Elian pointed at a massive boulder sitting in the center of the current. The water hit it with a violent spray, but the river did not stop. It didn't try to push the boulder, it didn't argue, it simply moved around it, maintaining its direction with a terrifying singular intent. "The river has a secret," Elian said, leaning close so Kael could hear over the roar. "The river knows its destination. Because it knows where it is going, it knows what to ignore. To everything that is not the ocean, the river says no. It says no to the banks that try to slow it down. It says no to the debris that tries to clutter its surface. It says no to the wind that tries to turn its tide. Its no is its power." Kael shook his head. "But I can't just say no. People depend on me. Opportunities will vanish. If I stop, I lose everything." Elian picked up a small flat stone and handed it to Kael. "Throw it. Try to hit that branch in the middle of the rapids." Kael threw it. It skipped once and was instantly swallowed by the white foam. He tried again and again. Each time his focus was split between the roaring sound, the wind, and the moving target. He missed every time. "Your intent is weak," Elian whispered. "You were trying to hit the branch, but you were also trying to stay dry. You were trying to look strong, and you are worrying about the stones you have already lost. You are a man of 1,000 yeses and no. A man who stands for everything eventually moves for nothing." Elian took a stone. He didn't throw it immediately. He stood there for what felt like an eternity. He breathed with the rhythm of the water. He didn't look at the wind. He didn't look at Kael. He became a part of the silence within the noise. When he finally moved, it wasn't a struggle, it was a release. The stone sliced through the air and struck the branch with a sharp crack. "Intentional focus," Elian said, "is not about trying harder, it is about eliminating everything that isn't the target. We think focus is a spotlight we turn on. It isn't. Focus is the darkness we create around what matters. It is the brave, cold, and necessary no to 1,000 good things so that one great thing can live. Kael stayed with the hermit for 7 days. He didn't speak, he didn't write, he simply watched the river. He watched how the water never hurried, yet it was never late. He watched how it chose the path of least resistance, not out of laziness, but out of a perfect economy of energy. On the final day, Kael realized the weight he had been carrying wasn't the weight of his responsibilities, it was the weight of his indecision. Every time he didn't say no to a distraction, he was carrying that distraction on his back. He was a traveler trying to climb a mountain while carrying every rock he found interesting along the way. "Go back to the valley," Elian told him as the sun began to dip behind the peaks. "But remember the river's no. When you return, they will ask for your time, they will ask for your soul, they will offer you gold for your peace and praise for your exhaustion. You must look them in the eye and remember the ocean. If it doesn't take you to the ocean, it is a rock, and you must flow past it." Kael descended the mountain, but he was not the same man who had climbed it. His hands were steady, his eyes were clear. When he reached his home, the chaos was waiting for him, the messages, the debts, the demands, the noise. But this time he didn't jump into the mud. He sat by his own small garden and looked at the tasks before him. He picked up his pen, and for the first time in his life, he began to cross things out. No to the meeting that served only ego. No to the project that lacked purpose. No to the people who only came to him to dump their own mud. With every no, he felt a strange sensation. He felt lighter. He felt a surge of power he hadn't known since he was a child. He realized that a no is not a wall. A no is a channel. It's the banks of the river that keep the water from turning into a swamp. Without the no, you are just a puddle, evaporating under the heat of the world's demands. With the no, you are a force of nature. The world will tell you that you are missing out. It will tell you that you are being selfish or lazy, but the river doesn't care what the rocks think. It just keeps moving. It knows that its only job is to reach the vastness of the sea. You have a sea to reach. You have a purpose that requires every drop of your energy, every ounce of your spirit. Stop giving your life away in fragments. Stop pouring your soul into leaky buckets. Master the no. Find your flow and let the world wonder how you became so calm in the middle of the storm.